Thanks for staying with us. It's time now to dig into our hot topic for this morning, and it happens to be the 2025 budget and the nation's scorecard. That's how we titled it this morning. We're going to just have some time together with our guests this morning, by x-raying some things, sundry issues about Nigeria, beginning with that budget 2025. Our guest this morning is Professor Mustapha Nwokobia. He is the convener, Country First Movement. Good morning and welcome to the program, Prof.
Good morning, Nyamgul. It's my pleasure to be here.
It's mine as well. I hope your house has not been demolished in Abuja.
No, it hasn't.
So what's the situation actually? Wike is talking tough. The residents are saying he's not doing enough to give them notice, and those who have even accepted their fate, the compensation is not much. What is the situation like right now?
No, the tragedy of leadership in this climb is the fact that leaders dance to the tune of court jesters. Leaders refuse to adhere to logical arguments. Leaders are overwhelmed by what puppeteers do. And that's why with the hoopla of criticisms against the way he's running the FCT, tragically, yes, Wike doesn't want to understand that you have to gauge public perception, you have to understand public temperament, you have to understand that people have been living there for 20 years, 30 years, before he ever became a minister of state, a governor, and now the minister of the FCT. So I think that those who truly care about him and those who truly love him should tell him that the way he's going about the FCT is like a czar who doesn't understand that there were people before him and there will definitely be people after him. So I hope he humbles himself to the reality. I hope he humbles himself to understand that no matter how much applaud he gets from his kitchen cabinet, there are people who are critically observing and watching what he does. He's insisting that the demolitions will continue. Whilst insisting, the facts and figures pointing, accusing figures to him that he is involved in land grabbing. So I think he had better sat down with his kitchen cabinet and looked for those who will tell him the truth, who will help him think right, and who will help him do right.
He doesn't present as someone who would listen. I don't know, maybe that's a personal perspective.
My mentor, Mahatma Gandhi, once said a long time ago that even the devil has a conscience. It depends on how you talk to the devil. I think that he must learn to listen for his own good. Ultimately, there's something about power that blinds. There's something about power that removes people from reality. There's something about power that interrogates. But in the very end, like Martin Luther King Jr. would say, the will of the people will prevail. So I pray and I hope that he retraces his step. I pray and I hope that he humbles himself. I pray and I hope that he gets to work doing the right thing. Not about this, his braggadocio, not about his headmaster approach to issues. He must understand that there are people watching and there are critical minds and critical voices who will speak the truth to power and say it as it is.
But we had an FCT minister before that did demolitions indiscriminately, you might ask. Heavens didn't fall. What do you think will change for?
No, there's a lot of difference. I remember the tenure of the man who served as governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai. And I remember that long after he left the FCT, people are still calling him the best minister of the FCT, despite the demolitions. You don't set out to demolish places and then grab the places, sell the lands or give them, allocate them to your proteges and to your friends. You don't do that. And the facts are there. You know, interestingly, Nyamgul, in this age of people talking about defamation, and you wonder, but the truth is that the facts are there. You heard Madam Ritalari talk about the land that was allocated to her late husband, and how that land eventually ended up in the name of a protege of Nyesom Wike, Chinda. And you have several other issues. And I think that, for me, it's really not about the tendencies to pull down anybody. It's about the truth, you know, because if we don't speak the truth to power, we're all doomed. You know, there's this saying by a sage, when they came for the Jew, you said you're not a Jew. They came for the German, you said you're not a German. They came for the Austrian, you said you're not an Austrian. And then when they came for you, everybody said they don't know you. You know, because the point is that at the very end, truth will prevail. You know, it was James Russell Lowell who said long time ago, truth on the scaffold, falsehood on the throne. That same truth sways the future. For behind the darkness unknown standeth God, behind the shadows, keeping watch over his own. Truth will always prevail.
Okay.
Fairness will always prevail. Love will always prevail over hate. Justice will prevail over injustice. And that's exactly what I hope that those who superintend the power place, who superintend our political amphitheater, would understand.
Well, you touched on justice. We will come back to that when we're talking sundry other issues. I just needed to know that you're safe wherever you are. Now, let's go to the crux of the matter, the budget 2025. According to our president, the economy is responding to the policies of the present administration, but that is just a fallout of what he thinks he has been doing. Now it is 49.7 trillion naira in the 2025 budget, predicated upon an oil benchmark of about $75 and an exchange rate of 1,500 naira to a dollar. When they were presenting the medium-term expenditure framework, the projected amount for the dollar was 1,004. Now for the budget of 2025, it's 1,500 naira to a dollar. In your assessment of that budget, which way Nigeria?
Let me say clearly that first, I have staff who work for me, and I ask them to work excellently. Unfortunately, there were two very serious faux pas in the presentation yesterday. The first was that Mr. President told us about 47.9 trillion. Whereas the figures were 49.7. And then he also called the 10th Assembly, the 11th Assembly. And then you ask yourself, I hope he has minders and people who work with him who are primed for excellence. That's on the point, the first point I want us to note. And then the issues about what bothers the carapace of my mind deeply is the fact that if you're pegging the naira at 1,500 per dollar, that means we're in trouble. Because it means that the effort at making the naira gain life against the dollar is tiny, and minute. It also means that on the one hand, you're telling us that the economy is gaining life. And then on the other hand, you're admitting that you're not sure about how much life the economy will gain. Because if in the midterm you said, okay, you're pegging the naira at 1,400 against the dollar, and for budget 2025, you're pegging it at 1,500 against the dollar, it means that you're admitting that your competency to make the naira gain life against the dollar is thin. And then one very serious situation in that in yesterday's presentation that really got me was the fact that our president did say that the budget is primed at a rate of daily production of crude oil to the tune of about 2.06 million barrels per day. And I don't think that we're getting as much as 1.2 million barrels at this point. And then I asked myself, how more ambitious can Mr. President and the government be? I think that what we need as a people and as a nation is to be true to what we say on paper. What we need as a people and as a nation is to be open to the masses of our people.
Total Energies, MRS, Sahara, others win 25 new oil blocks. Will it not improve?
Do you know how long it takes to effectively strike oil? Do you know how long it takes to effectively produce crude? It will take those companies at least 4 months to begin to exploit and explore. And when you understand these realities, my hunch is to ask Mr. President to be true to what he says on paper, because the truth is that the economy responds to most of these things, and that's why we're where we are. Some people have called me to say, with the monies budgeted for education, you should be happy. With the money budgeted for security, you should be happy. And with the money, and I asked, with all these monies, you have about 15 trillion to service debts. And so you ask yourself, is it 2 steps forward and 4 backward? I think that there are a lot of things that this government must do and do right. If you want to fund a budget, if you want to run our country and make it effective, efficient, and effectual, then you must be true to our people. Nyamgul, there's an interesting development that I must urge the minders of our presidency to look at. If it is on record that we have about 46 trillion in the national reserves, then you just should suspend servicing debts to about 15 trillion and face the economy, face the recovery of our economy. Because whether you like it or not, Nyamgul, no matter what you say on paper, Nigerians are hungrier today than they were yesterday. Whether you like it or not, Nigerians have lost more jobs today than they did yesterday. Whether you like it or not, give them all the statistics. It was Martin Luther King Jr. who said a long time ago that true compassion is beyond tossing a coin at a beggar. It's about ensuring that the edifice that produces beggars is pulled down. What is important as we talk today, and like I said to my listeners and my friends, this is about a patriotic and a didactic session. It's not about throwing stones at the presidency. It's about making Mr. President understand that things can be done better, and rightly so. Beyond the tendentious proclivity of government to every year they tell us, okay, we're servicing debts to the tune of 5 trillion, to the tune of 10 trillion, now to the tune of 15 trillion. You ask yourself, if you're servicing, America owes well over $49 trillion. That's not their problem. What the problem is with America is to ensure that the system is working. If we're committed to ensuring that the Nigerian economy is working, that production is effective and efficient, that jobs are created, that poverty is reduced, our creditors will give us a breather. The reason they have problems is that you're owing them. Whereas you're owing them, the same government is involved in wanderlust, waste, and profligacy. You're buying cars, you're building houses that you don't need, you're spending money on overseas trips, and then when they look at it, they ask you for their money. That's why the challenge or the pressure on debt servicing is so much. But if our creditors were to look at the Nigerian economy and see that the economy is being rejigged, and see that factories are coming alive, and see that jobs are being created and the infrastructure is normative, if you like, is better than it was, they will give you a breather. And that's why I think that what Mr. President and the minders of the presidency must do is to ensure that the budget is expressly followed to the letter in ensuring that there is infrastructural development, there is creation of jobs, there is fundamentally, this is necessary for our country. Anybody who looks the other way, there is devolution of powers. States must strive.
I don't know how all the things you're mentioning will come to be, because even at that presentation yesterday, we were also told that the implementation of the 2024 budget will be extended till about June next year. In this 2024, we're operating almost like 4 budgets within one fiscal year. Now we're extending it to June 2025, and then there's a 2025 budget, which is likely to have another supplementary budget and all that. So I'm just asking myself, how will all this come about? What minders are you even talking about when in the National Assembly, after the things you mentioned yesterday, that he called the National Assembly the 11th Assembly, he had a standing ovation, because at the end of the day, he said, that means you're all re-elected. They clapped for him and stood up and gave him a standing ovation. So who are these minders that you think are going to talk to him and change the narrative?
Nyamgul, it does bother the carapace of my mind to imagine that leaders in this climb do not pander more to those who are critical about them. They are more inclined to those who praising them. I think that if we had a presidency that is inclined to critical thought, like Abraham Lincoln when he had Stanton, who was his greatest critic as the Secretary of War, that's what true leaders do. You look for those who would say no to you. You look for those who would criticize you. You look for those who will tell you, Mr. President, this is not right. And then when you surround yourself with such people, you're more likely to perform and succeed. Well, Nyamgul, importantly, it was some theater of the absurd yesterday when a very deep mistake, some people think it's just a simple mistake, when you call the 10th Assembly the 11th Assembly. It's a deep and a huge mistake. And then what I saw in the stand was people laughing and applauding.
Yes, this
and then the next thing Mr. President says to them, it means you're re-elected. And it was some interesting joke for all of them. And I said to myself, when are we going to have people who will critically x-ray issues and not gloss over fundamental issues? And it also goes to the fact that the total budget figure was not 47.9 trillion. It was 49.7 trillion.
Yes.
And that's another, by over 200 billion, an error. And then you ask yourself, why doesn't those who superintend this country understand that the lives of over 200 million people devolves on what they do with power? Why don't they care about where we're headed in the face of a highly progressive world? Why are they not particularly interested in excellence? And I said to you, Nyamgul, the biggest business in this country is governance and politics. The second largest business is kidnap for ransom. The third largest business is 419. And that's the tragedy of our nation. Until government comes straight and strong to the people. How do I mean? Until government becomes responsible and responsive to the people. How do I mean? Until government understands that the challenge before us as a people is to make the potentially greatest country in the world truly great. Our search for a good republic will be like a wait for Godot. And I am here.
But I think everything is removed from the hands of the government right now. You are the convener of Country First. And that means the people should have a different mindset to think about the country first before individuals. But how does that happen when you have a governor who pays the minimum wage and permanent secretaries are organizing people to go and say thank you for their right? You have a governor who cannot call budget figures, and then the chairman, the state chairman of that party that is that the governor is from, is coming to defend him and saying that it's because he has not stolen before. That's why he couldn't call the
it does appear like we have a monarchical system.
So how do you?
It does appear like we have a feudalism where people. I'm going to say this about my friend Fubara in River State, for instance, who every day pays a lot of money to have live coverage of projects. And then you ask yourself, how much does he spend to do this? The truth is that the time has come for us as a people. The time has come for us as a people to critically assess governance and power. And I want those who superintend our nation to understand that critical voices like ours are indeed the voices of patriotism. Those who massage the ego of leadership are those who do not care. The time has come for us to do right and ensure that leadership is responsible and responsive to the people.
Okay, let's just take a short break. We'll be back to continue this discussion. We're still here with Professor Chris Mustapha Nwokobia, convener, Country First Movement. We'll be right back.